Hey everybody, welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we are looking at the FN Model 1922, also known as the Model 1910/22. This is another 32 ACP pocket pistol. As you guys may recall, I'm rather fond of those and have an ever-expanding collection of them. I actually mentioned that I was hunting for one of these some time ago. I think it was when we did one of the earlier Day at the Range videos where we took a look at all the 32s I had in my collection at that time. It's a nifty little thing. It's tiny. It actually feels pretty good to shoot as a whole. The sights are rather minuscule, but not as much as the 1910 variation, of which when we go to the tabletop, we'll probably bring the 1910 back out just for a little bit of compare and contrast. One thing you'll notice straight out of the gate is that the 1922 is about an inch longer. But this is one that was made for the Wehrmacht during World War II by the Belgians. And we'll definitely be getting a lot into that here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and go into the gun room and talk some FN Belgium history.
FN's Browning Model 1922 has one of the more straightforward origin stories of any of the guns we've taken a look at lately. It is a direct upgrade over the FN Browning Model 1910. You can definitely see the similarity, and we will definitely be taking a closer look at the differences when we go to the tabletop view here in just a little bit. But it is just longer barrel and one more round of capacity. And the reason for that, of which is what brought this into being, was in the early 1920s, Yugoslavian authorities reached out to FN of Belgium to contract them to make a new service pistol for them to use. FN accepted the contract and just stuck with what they knew and just beefed up the Model 1910 because the Yugo authorities had a couple stipulations with the contract. They wanted it to fire from an 8-round magazine. The 1910 only holds 7, and they wanted it to have a 114 millimeter barrel, of which off the top of my head I don't know the millimeter conversions here, but it's basically an inch longer barrel from the 1910 to the 1922. Also, the iron sights are definitely an upgrade over the ones fitted on the 1910. And again, we'll look at this a little closer, but the gun wound up being a huge success. Actually, a significant amount of European countries would use these, as well as they'd be shipped all over the world, really. But in Europe, notably, they were used by, obviously, Yugoslavia and Belgium, as well as Denmark, Finland, France, Romania, Greece. Eventually Germany would use them. This is one such example of that, and that is actually the part of the story that we're going to get into here in a moment, because as everybody knows, in both World Wars, Belgium was invaded by Germany. In the Second World War, this happened in, I believe, May of 1940, and from basically right off the get-go of 1940 all the way until 1945, FN kept producing these guys right here for Germany under German supervision. And as such, you will see, and we'll again take a closer look at this, but on the left side, German proof marks and the Belgian proof marks would be done away with. That would also lead to this having another new name. So names for this gun. Just a quick rundown. We've got FN 1922, Browning 1922, FN or Browning Model 1910/22, as it is simply a beefed up Model 1910. And then the Germans' name for it, the Pistol 626B, B in parentheses, and that is a denotation for Belgium. They had a tendency to rename guns as soon as they showed up in an area. Another one that is actually very closely related to this is the Luftwaffe contract Femeru Model 1937, of which the Germans called Pistol Modell 1937H, I think, for Hungary. So, Pistol 626B, or FN/Browning Browning Model 1910/22 wound up being also issued to the Luftwaffe mostly. This is what the Germans found use for it with. That was a weird sounding sentence. Anyway, that is how the Germans put these to use, was they gave them to the Luftwaffe as a standard sidearm, and they used a lot of them. They're actually one of the easier German issue pistols to find. I've personally ran across like 5 or 6 of them in the last few years, and by comparison to a lot of other World War II Nazi issue firearms, they're comparatively cheap. And that is not where this thing's story ends either. After the Nazi occupation ended in 1945, FN kept on making these, and over the years they made several attempts to introduce them to a wider, more worldwide audience. This would lead to the Browning Arms Company eventually creating the Model 1955 and later the Model 1971, both of which are direct upgrades over this one. So it is a gun that had a long life going in both directions, really. And we've talked about the Model 1910 a couple times. I probably already said this, but there will be a link to the 1910s video in the description for this one, as it is pretty directly related. Oddly enough, I don't think I even once mentioned in that video that it is technically a Browning Model 1910. FN is the manufacturer, but it is a Browning's patent design. Again, just happy to have a couple of guns designed by good old John Moses Browning in my collection. And I'd love to get the predecessor to either of these, the FN Model 1900 or Browning Model 1900. Again, as well as a great many other guns that he made over the years. But anyway, let's go ahead and go to the tabletop view and take a look at how to take this thing apart and a look at the markings. There's a few markings worthy of note on this example. So first off, you're going to see very plainly you've got the Fabrique Nationale d'Armes de Guerre, Herstal Belgique. I'm going to say right now, I know that I mispronounced some of that. In Belgium, they speak French, and we have well established my mangling of the French language. Under that, we've got Browning's patent deposed. So this is a Browning-made gun, FN Herstal Belgium. Then on this particular example, you can see plainly German proof. So you've got your stick eagle proof marks, and then your Waffenamps there, more proof marks, and there's more on the barrel, but they're not actually visible. On the visible side of the barrel, you've just got your serial number. So these German examples, to my understanding, are always going to have these wood grips. Earlier examples and wartime commercial models would have grips more reminiscent of what we've got on the 1910 here, though they're going to be hard plastic rather than horn, as seen on this particular example. Again, we go over the significance of horn grips on this one, as that is actually part of the process of determining the date on a Model 1910 is what material the grips are. But it would look like this with the FN crest up here. These wood grip examples are usually going to be your wartime issued examples. And we did mention that we were going to take an actual, just a straight up comparison here. So as you can see, about an inch longer on the barrel and a little bit longer grip to accommodate that one extra round. And that is the biggest difference between the two, but then there's also the sights. So this, you've got standing iron sights that are, you know, at least fairly standard. On this thing, you've got a groove inside, in the top of the slide, with your rear sight being a notch into the groove, and then a small post sticking out that is about flush with the actual shape of the slide. So yeah, there's not really a lot of differences between the two aside from that. It's just a upscaled Model 1910. Now,
Unlike with the 1910, I actually have the ability to disassemble this one. If you remember with my 1910, someone mangled that, so I couldn't get it out. With the 1910, you have to depress this, rotate it, and pull it out. With the 1922, it's a little more simple. So first we're going to want to remove the magazine. Then you've got this little catch spring that you see here. You're going to pull that out with your thumb and rotate clockwise. And keep pressure on this when you're doing that, because this spring is going to try and push it out. Now, spring is on here a little tight, so it is kind of an annoyance. I've got to kind of refit off. That part is cinched around the barrel pretty tightly on my particular example. But now your slide and barrel should be more or less free. The only thing acting on this right now is the firing pin spring. So lock this to the back and then rotate your barrel clockwise. Now unlock the slide, and the slide and barrel should come off. Now you're going to rotate the barrel back and pull it straight out. On the barrel, on the side that is hidden, is where you're going to find your German proof marks, as well as your serial number, so you can pretty easily identify if it, matches the gun. It's not a mystery. On the topic of markings, your markings for Belgian military are going to be pretty much identical to what you see on my model 1910 here. There's going to be markings on the barrel as well as on the slide and the frame, and I believe they are in basically the same place. If you have a wartime commercial example of these, those are actually pretty rare. By my understanding, it was only somewhere between 5 and 8% of the total produced were wartime commercial examples. So I believe it is back here. There'll be a little triangle marking. It might actually be on this part here. And your firing pin, by the way, is contained inside here, so you can just slide that out. If you do this when the firing pin is not cocked, if you do it when the firing pin is cocked, then it will be mounted on here. But it's pretty easy to put it back together. So slide that back in. Got to take our barrel, slide it in, and rotate it into place. There's a track you can see right in there. I don't know how well you can see, but right at the tip of my finger, there's a notch that this rotates into. So right there. Boom. Now, just slide it back on, lock it on the second notch, and then you should be able to rotate this back into place. So that locks in the grooves on the, actually on the frame. Now I can push our spring back on, let the slide forward. It's not cooperating with me for some reason. The barrel wasn't quite locked into place. That'll do it. So now we've got the barrel back. Keep the slide forward, and then you're going to want to have this notch go into there, but you've got to rotate it into place. So you're going to find where it, there, right there is where it slides in, and then just rotate it until that clicks. And now should be working all correctly. Bada boom. Pretty simple. It can be a little annoying with the rotating barrel, but it really isn't all that hard. So anyway, let's go ahead and take this back out to the range and put a few more shots through it. Loading this gun is going to be a lot like any other of the European 32s we've taken a look at. So as we looked at during the disassembly, your European style heel release that you see on a lot of stuff, just pull that down and then grab the tag on the magazine to pull it out. So this was a empty magazine, got a full one in my pocket. So a lot of times what I tend to do is use the back of the magazine on the latch to kind of push it out of my way, and then just push it the rest of the way in. You want to make sure it seats all the way down until the clasp catches it. These do have a grip safety, and You can actuate the slide without holding down the grip safety, but there you go. This is, I believe, 8 rounds. This is your safety right here, and I actually haven't tested to see if this safety works. Today is actually the first time I've ever brought this out. Shots at the beginning of the video were the first shots I've ever fired through this. So let's see if the safety works real quick. Grip safety is stuck, so I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. Yep. And then safety off, let's not actuate the grip safety. Still doesn't fire. Now grip safety depressed, let's make sure that all is well. This does not lock on open, or lock open on empty rather. I'm jumbling up my words. One thing I'm noticing with this, and you may actually have seen, aiming at center of target, this hits quite high, I'm noticing. So all the hits I was getting were on center pretty much, but very low on the target, aiming at about the lower, just like the lower couple inches of the target is where I'm actually getting hits with this thing. So now that I'm, learning where it hits, it seems to, as long as I'm aiming where it hits, it does seem to hold more or less to the same spot. So in the case of this example, and we have a sample size of 1, low center seems to be the sweet spot. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. I definitely have enjoyed getting to shoot this thing for the first time. I've been sitting on it for a while. It's been Thomas, Great Northwest Weaponry, and we will see you next time.